The recent release of the trailer for Snow White has brought a lot of conversation to YouTube. One of those conversations revolve around the exclusion of people who are vertically challenged from acting in roles that foster unflattering stereotypes. Now, I don't know anything about that, but I do know that the Seven Dwarfs are some of the most beloved characters in all of Disney lore. And this whole conflict inspired this week's pick for Retro Movie Review Theater. A film from 1981, a film that bombed at the box office, a film that was shown constantly to young Gen Xers on cable TV, a film that does not give a crap about your uncomfortable feelings when confronted with a narrative that includes over 150 little people, most of whom are there to act like lecherous, alcohol-fueled sex addicts, one additional midget who's actually a Nazi agent working for Hitler, and who runs around all the time with Adolf's signature mustache, a functional alcoholic Irishman who stands 6'8" tall and is the sexual desire for all the female dwarves, a tourist group of Japanese men who are all dressed in white suits, all have a fascination with cameras and taking pictures, and whose group name is Japanese Amateur Photography Society, or Japs, an additional Japanese man who's taken straight out of every Oriental trope of the time as a Japanese spy who needs to connect with our little Nazi agent. And we cannot forget about Chevy Chase as a Secret Service agent trying to protect the Duke and Duchess from assassination from an Italian man who looks like a reject from every mafia movie made from 1930 to 1979. And if all of that's not enough for you, we've got Princess Leia as the talent agent in charge of the 150 little people because they are there to film The Wizard of Oz. But that's not what's important. What's important is that Princess Leia spends a portion of the film in her lingerie for all you fellow nerds out there. You're welcome. Intrigued yet? Yeah, and I haven't even gotten to a plot. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. When The Wizard of Oz was being produced, there were rumors about how rambunctious the cast of Munchkins were when not on set. These rumors persisted, even if they could not be confirmed, and were probably not true. The main story being that the cast of the Munchkins were housed in a hotel together and absolutely destroyed the place with their constant partying that would make an 80s rock star jealous. The truth is that the Munchkins were excited to be amongst so many of each of their own, that they did celebrate, but they were never that destructive. However, that would have been a really boring story, so we get the one that we have. Now, don't get me wrong, there were many other stories of the Munchkins acting inappropriately on set. Specifically, they liked to grope Judy Garland, so maybe this film isn't too far-fetched. With that in mind, in 1981, Warner Brothers and Orion Pictures released the film Under the Rainbow, primarily set at the Culver Hotel, which is the actual hotel from 1933 that housed the Wizard of Oz cast. The premise of the film begins in Topeka, Kansas. I mean, really, where else would it? Where Rollo dreams of Hollywood stardom while wasting away in Depression-era Middle America. He has an accident falling from a rooftop, and there begins his dream, just like Dorothy in the original Wizard of Oz. We are then introduced to Adolf Hitler, who gives a special mission to one of his operatives, Otto. Now he's to meet up with a Japanese counterpart to share a map of the US mainland that has strategic points of invasion for the Axis powers. How will Otto know that he's talking to the right Japanese man? They have a secret phrase to repeat to each other: the pearl is in the river. What could go wrong? We then meet Secret Service agent Bruce Thorpe, played by Chase. He's tasked with protecting the paranoid Duke and Duchess from would-be assassination. In tow with the Duke and Duchess is Strudel, their dog. The problem is, the Duchess is basically blind, and Strudel keeps dying throughout the film, only to be replaced by a new dog that the Duchess never suspects to be different because, again, she really can't see. But the Duke is right to be paranoid, as there is an assassin out to get him because it's part of his family's destiny. But don't worry too much about the Duke. The assassin is not very good at his craft, although he does manage to kill others by accident. Regardless of all those narratives, the heart of the film is Rollo and Annie Clark, played by Carrie Fisher. Annie is a production assistant for The Wizard of Oz, and she's in charge of procuring the whole Munchkin cast, as well as housing them at the hotel. Now, in this dream sequence, Rollo is a tramp hiding from transportation officials because he's a stowaway. And this is where he meets the other cast members in the film, and they protect him as one of his own, and they take him in. Now, of course, all these characters will end up at the Culver Hotel, which is under the temporary management of Adam Arkin as his first assignment, and from there, it only gets stranger. The Italian assassin tries to poison the Duke during dinner, but one of the Japanese photographers accidentally drinks the poison and dies. Tiny, our giant alcoholic Irishman, tells Adam Arkin that he can take care of it and puts the body on a meat hook in the hotel freezer. Otto, our Nazi midget, mistakes another of the Japanese tourists for his connection through a misunderstanding of the phrase, the pearl is in the river, and gives him the invasion map, which, through circumstance, makes its way to Annie's copy of the Wizard of Oz script. Meanwhile, the 150 Munchkins are drinking the place dry, hanging from ceilings, running a train on a prostitute, which gives us the line from one of the dwarves when finished up, "That's the first time I ever went up on a woman." Strudel is killed multiple times again, including Chase playing fetch with the dog, but accidentally throwing a ball out the 30th floor balcony window. The dog did his best to follow through and make the catch. It didn't work out for anyone. Now, because Otto and his Japanese counterpart Nakamori believe that Annie has the map. They ransack her room, which brings Agent Thorpe to help, and the romantic tension between the two begins to rise. As Thorpe and Annie try to figure out what's going on, the Italian assassin tries to kill the Duke again, but he misses and kills another Japanese tourist, and then, thinking the Duke is in the elevator, uses a machine gun to blast through the doors, only to discover that the rest of the Japanese tourists were in there, and he's now killed all of them too. Otto manages to corner Annie and uses a concealed saber to remove her dress, leaving Annie to spend the next 20 minutes or so running around in lingerie. Again, nerds, you're welcome. Rollo tries to help Annie but gets knocked out. Thorpe and Annie reunite, and a chase ensues for the map. At this point, the hotel is trashed. Adam Arkin is at his wit's end and also stuck atop a chandelier. The Italian assassin kills Nakamori before being killed by Nakamori. Thorpe retrieves the map. A stampede of little people wreak havoc on the backlot sets of Warner Brothers while trying to run down Otto the Nazi, which they are finally able to do, but not without severe damage to the Emerald City, and in the end, everything works out for the best. This is when Rollo wakes back up in Kansas, surrounded by his friends, much like Dorothy in the end of The Wizard of Oz, and we see all of the main characters now with mundane, everyday lives. A truck pulls up looking for Rollo. It's the studio looking for him to be in a movie along with other little people, including Otto, who is now the talent manager for all the Munchkins. He gets on board, the music starts, the credits roll, and that's it. That's the end. In this plot recap, I did not mention the destruction of the hotel kitchen, which involved batting practice with eggs, or sending blackout drunk midgets through the dishwasher, or Tiny, our Irishman, being tied up by the female Munchkins for their pleasure, or a group of little people removing the cable from the hotel elevator, which causes it to drop, and which causes the African-American elevator operator to emerge from the wreck and now a Munchkin himself, or an unnamed little person gaining access to a female dressing room at Warner Brothers backlot where he locks the door, turns slowly, breathes heavily, and goes after the bevy of undressed females through a haze of steam, and yeah, you get the picture, consent is not exactly a thing in this film. With all of that said, this film is either loved or given high marks for camp, parody, and outright goofiness, or it is derided as a bad film that both Fisher and Chase point to as one of the worst, if not the worst film either had ever been a part of. And I suspect all of you will fit into one of those two categories. It is not often that a review of this film gets an average review. In a way, it's very polarizing. And it didn't have an easy release spot either. In 1981, theaters were filled with choices from previous weeks that would have massive staying power throughout the entire summer. Superman 2, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Stripes, Arthur, Cannonball Run, Clash of the Titans, Disney's The Fox and the Hound, History of the World Part 1, The Great Muppet Caper, Escape from New York. I mean, talk about competition. Not to mention the fact that the film was released on July 31st, and that means it's an August release, and in the early 80s, that wasn't considered big box office. May, June, and July account for 65% of box office gross in 1981. August was only a mere 7%. So audience trends, coupled with strong holdovers from previous months, and not so favorable critical reviews, I mean, this film was destined to flop, coming in number 40 for the year. And I'll admit, this film is hit and miss with its acting. Chevy Chase plays Chevy Chase, so he's fine. Carrie Fisher does her job well, but she looks so out of place at times in this role because, let's face it, she's not Carrie Fisher to us Gen Xers. She's Princess Leia. Always has been, always will be. Everyone else is just playing for parody, and it is cheesy, it is campy. The acting sits on that line between being so bad it's good and just being bad. But for some reason, the film is stuck around in the minds of a generation as a childhood memory, a cult classic of its own category. The script is contrived, full of convenience, and yes, full of things you cannot say or do in modern film. But am I here to apologize for it? No way, not at all. 80s movies don't care about insulting you. In fact, they kind of count on it. So in that regard, Under the Rainbow reached that goalpost. Is it a good film? Yeah, in every review I give, I usually offer a definitive answer based on my opinion. This one, all I can say is this. I enjoyed it. I've seen it way too many times to count because as an 80s kids, we were left home alone a lot, so cable television was our babysitter. Watching it back again for this review with older eyes, it was a moment of nostalgia, and that felt good. Would you like it? If you like absurdity, if you like parody, if you like base low comedy, then yeah, you'll probably like this film. But if the early 80s disregard for social and cultural tenderness offends you, then no. You'll probably not be able to make it past that lens. So, to the kids of the late 70s and early 80s, here's a reminder of a film that you may have forgotten, and you may enjoy watching one more time before putting it away forever. And to everyone else after that, here's a film that manages to use gender, race, physical body forms, and toxic masculinity as punchlines, and a great answer to the question a lot of millennials and zoomers keep asking, what the hell's wrong with Gen X? Nothing, really. This is the stuff we found funny when we were kids. Don't judge us too harshly. But if you do, most of us won't care anyway. And that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have you seen this film? Do you think it is culturally insulting or just plain good fun? And what's your opinion on the recent controversy about casting actors who are categorized as persons of short stature? And if you want more movie review fun, check out my playlist for retro movie review theater and my general movie reviews by clicking on the links in the description. And if you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe, and share it out with your friends. It really helps out the channel each week. I thank you for listening. And remember, I'm still your reluctant gringo from south of the border. Salud and a huevo.